Welcome to our show, Tough Talks Unlimited, co-hosted by Derek Bowles and myself, Michael Garth. In this show, we're going to hear from world-class leaders and innovators, people who are willing to have positive conversations and share their insights on tough talks to get you through tough times. Let's get started.
I'm extremely excited right now for a number of reasons. First and foremost, I want to give a little bit of a shout out to Coach Garland for allowing us to have this opportunity to work together. I think that's exciting, but let's talk a little bit about what we're going to have today. Tough Talks Unlimited, right? Powered by Champions of the Heart, as well as Maximum Execution Solutions. Our guest today is a phenomenal person. Every time we get a chance to connect, we have unbelievable conversations. It's John Gerdy. Give you a little bit of background on John. He was an All-American basketball player, played at Davidson, was the associate commissioner in the SEC, and he is now the author of a book called Airball, which is a very powerful book, which I'm super excited to talk about at some point. And it really talks about Americans' educational failed experience with elite athletes. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and appreciate what you guys are doing.
Absolutely.
John, could you give us a little bit of your background? Kind of like where you come from. How did you end up at Davidson, and talk a little bit about your professional career as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I grew up in northern New Jersey. I'm the son of a high school football coach. So I grew up in a coach's household, and he was also the physics teacher in our school. And the reason why I mentioned that is because my parents instilled in me a couple things that obviously stuck with me for the rest of my life, and they've informed everything I've done, all the work I've done, the books I've written, and that is particularly my father or both my parents. But it was absolutely clear in our household growing up that athletics is a tool to supplement the educational process.
Absolutely.
Right? Just like any tool, it can be used in a positive way or a negative way. So it was very clear in our household that, and I had two older brothers and a younger sister, and all of us were athletes. Both my other older brothers played college ball as well. But it was clear, if we did not perform academically, and if we were not responsible citizens and do good things off the court, we weren't going to play.
Right.
My dad didn't care how good we were. We weren't going to play. So that was always clear to me. So I've always had this notion of the role and purpose of athletics within our educational system is that it's first and foremost always about education. And that and that's informed my career. I went to Davidson and played basketball there, and it was a wonderful experience because it was I played in the mid to late 70s, which was a very tumultuous time,
right?
Particularly with the integration of major college athletics.
Absolutely.
With the civil rights laws of the late 60s,
right?
Opening our education to everyone. So it was really kind of an interesting time to be involved in college athletics, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I really value that because it was very clear at Davidson that, basketball is very, very important and very high visibility. But the beauty of it was once you left the court, you were treated just like a normal, everyday student.
Right.
And that always stuck in my mind, and it reinforced the lessons I've learned from my parents. So that really formed the basis of all of my work. And had a pretty successful career at Davidson. In fact, this is my claim to fame these days. I held a Davidson College career scoring record for 30 years until some dude by the name of Steph Curry came along.
How about that?
Yeah. So,
How about that?
yeah. So
That's
clearly,
How about that?
so clearly I never met a shot I didn't like, number one. I had a pretty good career, and I was drafted by the Nets and made it to the end of training camp and was let go. And I spent a year in the Continental Basketball Association. It's like
Absolutely.
the league
Yeah,
now.
I remember.
But the lesson I learned from that was very informative. Here I went to Davidson, and it was expected that everyone graduate.
Right.
You're there to graduate, go to school, graduate. Playing ball was important, but it was, you take care of academics first. I went from that environment where everybody graduated to the environment where I played for the Maine Lumberjacks in Bangor, Maine. And I think there were probably around 15 players that came and went, throughout that entire year. And I was thinking, one of maybe two people, three maybe, who had gotten their degree. And all of these other guys, they were on campus for 4 years, sometimes 5 years, and they weren't even close to graduating. And that got me thinking about this system of college athletics or sports within our educational system. It got me thinking a lot about that. And it really influenced my outlook. And so then I went from there. I went back and got my PhD in higher education because I wanted to be an athletic director or commissioner, because I felt that it was important. Not only if you're going to talk about that kind of stuff, you have to also walk the walk.
Right.
So I felt it was important. Yes, I compete on the elite level athletically, but it was important that I also have competed on the elite level academically. That's why I went back and got my PhD. Went from there, spent 3 years at the NCAA as a legislative assistant. That was a very interesting time because it was at the time, it was the late 86 to 89, and it was when everything was going crazy in college. Coach, you remember those days, right?
Yep, I sure do.
Major college out there, everything was going crazy. It was completely out of control.
Out of control.
It was the last of the plantation system, as far as I was concerned, regarding the economic and educational exploitation of the major college athlete, most of whom, football and basketball, most of whom were black kids.
Right.
Many first generation students.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so I was in the middle of all that. And again, watching all that and thinking back on my, my experience with the Lumberjacks and how, again, none of these guys graduated. And it just got me thinking about the whole system. And then I spent 6 years as associate commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, and my areas of responsibility were compliance, got to abide by the rules.
Right.
You can't be engaged in academic fraud and all that kind of stuff. You got to, that's compliance. And the other part was academic affairs, meaning these kids aren't pieces of meat. They are not cogs in the machine.
Right.
They're here, and the deal is, and the conclusion I came up with is that when athletes come out of high school and they're being recruited to go to college and play ball, there's an implicit, or really actually explicit, deal that is agreed upon between the university and the kids, right? And that deal was this: you come to our schools, you provide athletic performance. Don't worry, we'll keep you eligible. Don't worry about that. We'll keep you eligible, even if you have to put you in crib courses and bogus majors. We'll keep you eligible, but you have to perform athletically. And in exchange, and that fills the stadiums. That puts TV contracts together. That it raises money to sponsor not only football and basketball, all the other sports, tennis, golf, soccer, all played primarily by white kids. All the people in the stands are white. All the athletic directors and conference commissioners and the coaches, vast majority of them are white. And the whole enterprise is fueled by the efforts and energy and athletes, most of them black, putting their bodies on the line to fund this whole operation.
Right.
So my job was like, I was constantly, hey, wait a second, what this television contact's great, but what's this going to do with the kids? How's this going to help them academically? So I was constantly, about, kind of a thorn in their side to say, you got to abide by the rules. But number two is that, this agreement that you've made in exchange for their performance as a university and coaching staff, you have to provide them with a legitimate chance to earn a meaningful academic and social experience in addition to the athletic experience.
Absolutely.
Right.
It was wildly out of balance. And so the kids were clearly meeting their end of the bargain and still do. Stadiums are full and people got $1 million contracts and all that kind of stuff. But it's arguable whether the universities and the athletic enterprise has been meeting their end of the bargain. And that is to provide that legitimate academic and social experience in addition to the athletic. So the deal was out of balance. It was
no question, but
it was a definition of exploitation.
But John, what's interesting about everything that you're saying right now is the fact that we're right back there with the NLI and the transfer portal. John, in the last 5 years, since the NIL, you hear no more talk about academics or degrees. When there was a time where everything was pointed toward graduation, in particularly for minority athletes. Now, it is unbelievable. And you know as well as I do, because I'm quite certain we're about the same age, there's going to come a time where this whole thing is going to blow right back up again, because what's going to happen, that same kid who got the $200,000 NIL deal that couldn't cut it in the NBA, and then went to try to make it over in Europe and things maybe didn't work out or he got hurt. He's walked away from the institution where he played, no degree, and has no job skills because all he's been doing is playing basketball or participating in some other athletics all his life. And now all of a sudden, that kid is up under a viaduct somewhere. And then somebody informs 60 Minutes or some other media outlet of this kid. And then here we go. Hey, they gave me and I thought because I was young, it was gonna, I had $200,000. I thought it was gonna last my entire life. And, now I'm in a place and nobody cares. And, it is because of the dollar.
Right.
And what this is all about, the agreement to pay these guys, is all about the dollar on the corporate level. And in your book, you wrote a couple of things that I want to read back to you, that I would like you to share your comments with our audience on. And this is, I love it because it goes back to my days of growing up as a high school athlete. Elite athletics was incorporated into our educational system for several reasons. It was believed that involvement in athletics was educational for and built character of its participants. Then you go down to say, despite idealized notions to the contrary, the most significant reason athletics was incorporated into our high schools had little to do with education in the traditional sense. The driving force behind the development of such programs was the great industrialists of the 1900s. And then you go on to say, these business leaders looked upon organized athletics as a means to train, socialize, and control a workforce. Those are thoughts nobody, especially right now, today's society, nobody thinks about that in that way. But it's the truth.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, clearly, and in particular football, because football, we were in an industrial economy back then, right? You know, it's factory workers, and you needed strong bodies and people who could, you know, take orders. And let's put it this way: there wasn't much time for lofty thinking and philosophical thinking on an auto assembly line, right? So there's a couple of things on that though. Number one, you got to ask the question. That may have made sense back in the early 1900s, right? But now we no longer live in an industrial economy. We live in an information-based global world community, interconnected. So you wonder whether these kind of skills are the types of skills that really will instill in young people, that we really need to instill in young people. We need things actually, to be quite honest with you. I'm a firm believer in music as a more effective tool to out of the box thinking, creativity, collaboration, all those kinds of things. So that's the overriding, you know, the message there. But when you started to talk, Coach, you talked all about the dollars, right? And you know what? That horse is so far out of the barn now. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that train has left. It is so clearly about nothing but the dollars. And you have to begin to wonder and ask, you know, what is it? Should that be the role of athletics within our school systems? Right. To develop the elite, all these resources heaped upon the elite few. Meanwhile, everyone else is pushed to the sidelines to watch. In this one of the most obese nations on the planet. Should the role of sport in our schools, and I'm talking primarily about high school and grade school, should it be to develop all your resources on these elite athletes, or is it to provide broad-based participation opportunities for as many kids as possible around reasons of public health, teaching them lifelong health skills, exercise, as opposed to all the money going to the elite few? So now, what does that mean for the elite few kids? I kind of think the Europeans have it the right way here. So we're the only country in the planet that the responsibility for developing elite athletes and teams rests within the educational system. Every other country in the world, if you're identified as an elite kid early on, you pursue that excellence in the private club system. It takes it out of the educational system. I kind of believe that they have it the right way. And the role of school sports is, again, broad-based participation, teaching activities that can be practiced for a lifetime for reasons of public health in this one of the most obese nations on the planet. The kids who are really good, let them pursue that excellence. And I think we're slowly getting there. Like, Coach, for sure, AAU ball is a much bigger deal now than high school ball.
Absolutely.
For the really elite kids. Right. And I'm not so sure that might be the way to go, because you eliminate the hypocrisy. And this is why it's so important. This is what people don't think about. Major college athletics is the clearest and cleanest window through which the public views our system, our educational system. It starts with higher education. Higher education community is supposed to provide educational leadership that filters all the way down through the system, all the way down to pre-kindergarten, right? And so what happens when whether you like it or not, the most visible component of our entire educational system is what? Major college football.
Right.
The biggest, it's the clearest, it's the cleanest window through which the public views our educational system. So what is the message that we're sending when we, televise and, these games and stuff? Well, the message that we're sending is clearly sports are more important than education. I mean, that's clear. I mean, that's the message that we send through our, the most visible component. So, and if we don't think that there's a cost associated with that, because what is the role of higher education in our culture, in our nation, has been to provide educational and societal leadership on all kinds of issues. Right. And so what does the public take away when they see the most visible component of the entire system? It's that it's a contradiction. It's exploitation. It's all of those things. How can we expect the public to believe that we're going to do a good job in all these other areas if the most visible component, it's clear that it's not about education. It's about the Benjamins. It's about winning. It's about doing big contracts. What's the public supposed to believe? If you're hypocritical in that regard, well, how are they going to believe that you're going to effectively meet all these other more important issues? Healthcare, the economy, social justice. I mean, all of these things that our higher education community is going to provide leadership on. But yet, the most visible one is like, man, they're not about education at all. They're about, paying kids a bunch of dough, paying coaches a bunch of dough, and it's not about education. Does that make sense? I mean, there's a cost. People are watching us.
No question. No question. And it just come down to, just how I can build a team that will, make us visible nationally. And, now you see, you were associate commissioner. Now you see the conference, I call them conference grabs, where here we are sitting in the midst of the Midwest where the Big Ten was everything. Now the Big Ten extends all the way out to the West Coast, USC and UCLA. And that's all money driven, every bit of it. And it has nothing right now, nothing to do with education. It is scary. And John, I'm afraid of too, we are starting to move towards in basketball, towards the European model, and having elite kids. These kids are dropping out of high school and going to train and prepare themselves for a professional career at an early age. But what they don't understand, it is really put it this way, it gives the NBA an early snapshot of who's really, your elite players and who's really not. And there may be 24 of those kids, that are working out in one of these places, supposedly going to school there, but only 5, 6, 7 of them. And they have those kids at that young age play against, G League team players. And the ones that cut the mustard, they get drafted. They move on. But what about the other 16 or 17 out of the 24 that don't cut it? They stay there. They can't go back to college. They go to they may go to Europe and play there. But again, they're a young kid playing against grown men. So how successful can they be? And they're young kids. And I just think you're talking about exploitation. It is crazy. And then, John, if you notice, the ages of those kids leaving gets younger and younger and younger, and the parents, unfortunately, are allowing it.
Right.
Because they're looking at their kids as meal tickets.
Yeah.
Well,
And
but everyone is looking at these kids as meal tickets. Even like, think about like youth sports now.
yes.
You know, I'm talking about like kids who are 10, 12, 15.
Yeah.
You got all these coaches and they're all pressuring them. You know, you got to go to this tournament. It's got to be year round. You got to devote to basketball. You got to year round, you know, and it costs. Families are forking out money to go to these tournaments,
right?
And they're selling these camp experiences. Everyone's making money, but the kids. And the kids are being sold this bill of goods.
Right.
You know, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it.
Right.
Just keep them in the system. So I, as an AAU coach or whatever, you know, whatever it is, or administrator of a league or whatever, so I can continue to make money.
Right.
And it what's changed is what's gotten so dramatic, Coach. I think what you're talking about is you kind of sort of expect that as pros. You expect that
exactly.
It's fine. College, well, quite honestly, now they're pros in college now. That's
right. It's major college.
It's gotten down further, just like everything in higher ed, right? Higher education.
Right.
The influence filters down to high school and now even grade school.
Yes.
Everyone's trying to make a buck off these kids.
Yeah.
And
John, shamefully, their parents.
And their
parents. And I'm not gonna let the parents get away with this because they are heavily involved in the way that movement is in the way the movement is going. Heavily, because they have dollar signs in their eyes. Right. Instead of looking at their kid as looking at their kid as a kid that needs to be properly raised and properly educated. Right. And that I'm his parent, I'm not his friend, and I'm not, you know, he's not a meal ticket to me.
Right.
And they have, you know, these parents, they have illusions of grandeur. And it starts young. And I tell you, that's why I think you see, you know, mental health issues nowadays with athletes like you've never seen before because of the pressure, you know, from their parents and their loved ones and people closest to them. And they think that they have to be perfect and get things done. And if they don't, they're no good to themselves or society. And it's a shame. It is a crying shame. I don't, like you said, you know, the horse is out of the barn. And I mean, he's on the other side of the mountain range. Right. I don't know what we're going to do to be able to get it back.
Yeah. Well, you know, one thing you said earlier, and I'm going to push back on you a little bit on this with the NILs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, it's ironic to me, right? Everyone, all the college athletic community, coaches and the ADs and commissioners, they're all complaining, oh, NIL this, oh, NIL this, it's out of control, all that kind of stuff. Wait a second. You know, that horse has been out of the barn for a long time. It's like you reap what you sow.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like the system has been exploiting these kids forever and ever and ever.
Yes.
And everyone else is making money, you know, off the back of these kids can't even get a hamburger and stuff like that.
Right.
So, you know, you reap what you sow. If you continue to exploit them like that, eventually the public's going to start saying, wait a second. Then Congress is going to start saying, wait a second. And media is going to start, wait a second. Why aren't these kids getting any money, you know, for their efforts, right? And so it's like you reap what you sow. If we would have been honest with them, if we would have cared about them, if we would have kept education at the forefront, all those years, because you know what? That was the deal that I got. Right. That was a damn good deal.
Right. Yes, it is.
Go to college. I got to go to college for free, essentially. You know, not free. I worked for it. You know, it's a job. You know that. But I got to go to college. Didn't have to end up with any debt. Got a degree. had a great experience, educational experience. And you know what? I worked my butt off, and they got people in the stands, and they made money, and that's fine. That's a square deal. But it's not a square deal if the system just exploits you. They don't care about
Right.
their end of the bargain, which is providing you with that. Well, so you know what? You reap what you sow. And all those years, the college athletics community, when things were going great and no one was asking any questions and the money was coming in and the kids were kind of under control, not, happy to be
control.
there.
Yeah, right.
Happy to be there. It's about control.
Right.
Happy to be there. They were saying, no, man, I remember when we don't want Congress involved. We don't want politicians involved in trying to fix this. Don't worry, we will fix this.
Right.
Now that the NIL's in place and things are whoa, it's going crazy. Now they want Congress and politicians to step in and fix it for them. It's like, you reap what you sow.
Right.
Business and been honest about it from the beginning, you wouldn't be in this position, because you know what? It's a great deal if it's done right. But it clearly has not been done right. Now, the other thing I was saying, if they really cared about the kids, see, I think the NILs present a tremendous opportunity, because they're going to be there. That's not going to go away.
Sure.
This is what I mean by that. Instead of bemoaning that fact, instead of complaining about it, the schools should be thinking, okay, let me think here now. Man, this is a tremendous educational opportunity for the kids.
Yes.
They should be restructuring the academic curriculum for major college athletes. And this is the way I mean. First of all, let's get over this deal that you can be a full-time college student and perform academically and have more than a full-time job under the scrutiny of the media, traveling all over. Now, let's stop that, because you can't be a student athlete. At least So let's, during the season, give them limited hours. That's okay. Academic, right? As long as they make it up later.
Right.
But my point is, restructure the curriculum. Think about how powerful an educational curriculum you could put together for a kid who says, well, let's take your NIL, right? And let's make a business out of it.
Yes.
Your own personal business.
Yes.
You don't think these kids would be sitting up in class first there if they were using a study on my business?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
How do you brand your branding?
Yes.
How do you manage your money? How do you create social media to enhance your brand? How do you invest the money? Give them a curriculum.
Right.
They're actually building their own business.
Right.
Right. Now, and you think those kids aren't going to pay attention to that and learn from it?
Oh, no.
Absolutely.
You think those kids that don't make it won't be able to translate those skills and lessons to start their own business?
Exactly.
So that's one change. And the other change, I believe, should be for every year a kid plays at your school, right? You as a school owe that kid a full year academic scholarship for whenever that kid stops playing ball.
Right.
That kid can come back to school, playing days are over, come back to school and actually be a real student and get a real academic experience. Those are two things that I think if we do that, even with the NILs, if we do that, we'll at least be fulfilling more of our responsibility from an educational standpoint, a personal development standpoint, and a preparing kids for life standpoint that we're not doing now.
Well, John, one thing in the Big Ten for sure, I noticed for sure, athletes can, at any point come back now and finish their degrees. I don't know if there are other conferences have started that yet or not, but going back to what you said too, man, I really, really like your thoughts on that. But I'm gonna talk from experience here, and I used to, sit in on a lot of national coaches calls with my head coach, and I remember years ago, John, where those guys had said, these kids, we need to pay them. We need to compensate them for what they do. And they threw this idea out to the NCAA, and it got shut down. They wouldn't even bring it up for vote. What the coaches were saying was, okay, let's give each kid $25,000 a year. Let's put it into the school's investment fund or whatever. But he now at this point, he's just going to school. You know, he gets his BG, and I call it BOG. That's what it used to be, but his Pell Grant money, his scholarship money, and they wanted to raise the cap on the scholarship money for, you know, other things, like, you know, it's where kids can buy clothes and wash their clothes and have just a decent life as a college student. But each year I get that $25,000. We put it away. When I graduate, I get the money. But I don't get the money if I don't graduate.
Right.
They shot that down, and I thought that was a tremendous deal. And I thought that if they had done it, we wouldn't be here with an out-of-control system. I think that would have satisfied parents, the people, the public, and even the coaches. We, you know, I mean, I played too, man. Our coach was always concerned about, you know, whether, you know, we had money enough to meet our needs and stuff like that, man. But, you know, that's a shame. But if you add, if they had added in what you said, with what I'm saying, oh boy.
Oh yeah. Oh,
that changes the ball game, and that's truly education. Truly education.
Right. It's preparing them for life after athletics.
No question.
Absolutely.
And, you know, the other thing, first of all, Coach, I'm with you. You know, to some degrees, coaches have contributed to the problem in a big way. But on the other hand, I feel sorry for them because, like, you're caught between a rock and a hard place.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, you want to do right by the kids. You want to give, but by the same token, you got alumni and everybody in the media saying, you got to win, you got to win, you got to win. Otherwise, you're gone.
Right. That's right.
Between a rock and a hard place. But what that proposal, well, of course, the reason why that didn't make it, because that's money out of the coffers that everybody else.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's a whole nother story. But,
exactly.
but the other thing something like that would have done is, first of all, everyone knows it's a pro operation already.
Yes. Right.
You know, these kids are pros.
Right.
What is the fundamental definition of a professional athlete? Okay. What that definition is, it's simple. You get money, you get compensated in some way, shape, or form for services rendered.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. You get compensated. It's supposed to be the scholarship, and
exactly.
So if you don't perform as an athlete, you're gone.
That's right.
Right, from campus, right? You're gone. So that's the definition of a pro athlete. And these kids, they're pros. Let's be honest.
Right.
But that kind of a proposal that you were talking about, the coaches talked about years ago, what that would do, everyone knows they're pros.
Right.
And so what that would do, you're just acknowledging they're pros. We're going to pay them. And that's okay.
Exactly.
What that does more than anything, and it gets back to, again, I always go back to the fundamentals of education. The role of our educational institutions in our culture, in our society. What's doing something like that would have done, it would have eliminated the hypocrisy.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You would have just said, you know what? Everyone knows these guys are pros. I mean, they all are. And instead of having to pay them under the table because they don't have enough money for pizza,
right?
You're making it all above board. Public, we understand they're pros. That's what they are, and we're helping them out this way. This is what we're doing. And you know what? That means we don't have to continue to lie in public about saying, oh, these are student athletes. They're students first.
Right.
It's the hypocrisy and the lying about it, that true cost that we're paying, because it devalues the importance of education in our society. That's what it's doing. And if you don't think that the biggest, cleanest, clearest window that the public views our entire educational system, and it has this bullseye mark of hypocrisy at the center of it, you don't think that harms the public's perception of and value of the importance of education?
Yeah.
Man, you got to wake up, because we're paying a big cost for this.
Absolutely.
Man, this has been a powerful conversation, man. Powerful. So a couple things I want to say. Obviously, the stuff that you've already written, communicated, shared, I mean, you really are a progressive blueprint is what you are. And you speaking and sharing that is invaluable. And we appreciate your time. But let's talk about what you're doing now. I know we talked about you having a nonprofit, and I wanted you to really highlight what you're doing at this current time, because I want people to be able to connect with you.
Yeah. So 17 years ago, what happened without the Southeastern Conference, I was there for 6 years, and I left with the birth of our first child, and now we have 2 children. But anyway, so I was a stay-at-home dad for, the early years. And then, they got a little bit older. They don't need dad around as much anymore. So I had this wonderful opportunity to reinvent myself. I could have gone back into college athletics, but sort of like been there, done that. And I've been a lifelong musician, but at my heart, I'm an educator. I viewed the reason why I was in college athletics, it wasn't about sports. I really didn't care much about the gains. That didn't matter to me. What I cared about was how effectively we leveraged athletics it's a tremendous teaching tool.
Yes.
If it's kept in the proper perspective.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so I was looking, what do I want to do? So a lifelong musician, lifelong educator. Well, how about music? Music, similar to sports, is a tool to supplement the education process. So I founded this nonprofit called Music for Everyone, musicforeveryone.net, FOR number. And we started, our mission is to cultivate the power of music, right? Which is a very broad mission, right? Which you can do a lot of things with that. And then when you couple it with, cultivate the power of music, particularly as an educational and community building tool. And when you couple it with music, which is the vehicle through which we have that impact, it's the universal language. There's a lot of things you can do. So we are doing programs, everything from, we started out providing instruments to put instruments in kids' hands. Then it grew to instruction, right? And then summer camps, after school camps, all music related. Then it involved community building things. We have community building activities that brings the reason why you invest in music education is because every single issue we face as a nation or society or global community, whether healthcare, the environment, global politics, anything, in this increasingly fast-paced, interconnected world, is becoming more complex. So in order to be able to effectively address those increasingly complex issues and challenges, we have to develop in our populace a corresponding increase in what? Creativity.
Right.
Think right. Box. And the most effective tool in our educational community arsenal to teach creativity and collaboration and out-of-box thinking is music and the arts. Right? And then we started getting involved in community building things, right? For example, again, why is that so important? It's because in this increasing fast-paced world, a lot of ways we're so disconnected from each other, right? And music is unique in its ability to bring people together.
Yes.
It's a universal language. So that's why we do what we do. But that broad mission has allowed us, we're involved in economic development, involved in leveraging the arts as an economic driver for the local economy. We're involved now in leveraging the individual therapeutic and public health benefits of music. Everything from vets dealing with PTSD to depression to, you talked about, kids feeling, alienated and depressed and things like that.
Right.
Music can be a tremendous healing tool in that regard.
Right.
And we're also, particularly since the George Floyd murder, we're heavily involved in the area of leveraging music's power and potential as as a social justice tool.
Right.
Music has been at the center of every human rights or social justice cause or movement in the history of mankind.
Wow.
And
Wow.
we are heavily involved in that and providing it through a platform, a record series platform that we provide a platform for musicians, artists, poets, visual artists, all to bear witness about what's going on in the world around them regarding social justice issues. In fact, it led to be my most recent book that just came out. I sent you a copy of this too. It tells the story of my basketball journey in terms of I was often, one of the few white dudes on a team. So I was,
Right.
got a taste of what that was like,
Right.
and the lessons learned through basketball in that regard. But also the lessons learned in our journey as an organization, Music for Everyone, as we tried to really embrace and lean into how do we leverage music as a social justice and human rights tool to make things better in that regard. But I just recently published a book. It's called The Journey of an Old White Dude in the Age of Black Lives Matter. And it's about my journeys along the way and just try and I'm very cognizant of the fact that the vast majority of space in this area needs to be taken up by people of color to talk about it. That's how it should be. But there's only so much people of color can tell white folks about these issues.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Got to be a little bit of space in there. I don't know
There
if it's
you go.
10% or 15%, where old white dudes need to talk to other white folks about this stuff.
There you go.
And so I'm very clear, and I think with humility and respect, I'm very clear that I'm not trying to speak to everybody, but I am trying to speak to, that white folk in this nation about these types of issues and the lessons I've learned. Because you know what? And you all know this, you're athletes and you're coaches. But it's like the biggest lesson I thought the biggest lesson I learned anyway from playing basketball and sports is that when you work together, you practice together, you travel together, you sweat together, you celebrate together, you cry together, you pray together, and you also realize in close quarters, elbows flying, right? You hit somebody in the jaw, they bleed. Everyone bleeds the same color too.
Right.
And so I think why sports is so valuable is that you can't not recognize the basic humanity of your teammates, of another human being.
Right.
No matter their color, no matter their background, no matter their religion, it doesn't matter.
Right.
When you're competing together as a team, right? You can't ignore the basic humanity of people.
Absolutely.
And you know what the thing about it is? You learn that in music too. I've been on a 5-person basketball team, right? And 5 people working together, sweating together, individual responsibility, communication, hard work, all that kind of stuff in pursuit of a common goal, which is winning a game. But I've also been in a 5-person band and they're the same things. Discipline, hard work, communication skills, empathy, so these are important things that we have to, and again, they're tools, and they're neither positive or negative in and of themselves, but how do you use them? How do you leverage them? What kind of programs, what kind of values do you have as a basketball program or a university around athletics?
Absolutely.
Right.
That's the key. They're wonderful tools if we keep them in the proper perspective.
Absolutely.
We've lost perspective because of the money and the glory and the and the coaches are now stars. It's
a different day.
Yeah.
It's a different day. Like when your dad was coaching back during his days, when I'm sure we were both in high school, the coach lived right in your community most of the time, and he was part of the community. He went to church, to the same church you went to, and it has all changed, and you know what, that was the right way to do it. That was the way it should be and should have been done and continued.
Well, you know what started changing though? I'll tell you when you're doing it. Think about like back in the day, right? When my dad was coaching, or we were in high school or whatever. Think about college, and again, college, and it all filters down, right? Think about what changed dramatically in the late 60s, early 70s, okay? It was when recruiting became national and it became a science and it became everything. So what happened? That used to be as a college coach.
Absolutely.
You get hired, right? You got to get your staff. So where did you go to get your staff? Well, mostly you went to the high school ranks.
Exactly.
Because you had high school coaches.
Absolutely.
Most of them they were educators first.
That's right.
Coaches. They probably had master's degrees in education. They were in class. My father was a physics teacher.
Right.
In class, there were teachers first who happened to coach.
That's right.
They did everything. You know, they were educators first and
foremost.
First and foremost. Think about what happened when the big money came in and television and stuff came in. And all of a sudden, recruiting became national, and the science and everything went through. You had to recruit. Well, think about the coaches then when they put together a staff. What were the characteristics they were looking in their assistant coaches?
Salesmen.
Exactly right. Recruiters.
Right.
I don't care if you can coach. Go get me the play.
Go get me some guys.
And your value as an assistant coach was determined on not whether you knew your X's and O's or not whether you were good with the kids or whatever. It was about, can you bring me players?
Can you give me
and
some
the profile of the coach moved away from the educator who happens to be a coach model to like, this person's a coach and it's about winning and education is secondary. That's how so much of it's changed.
Right.
And then the media star. You know? So you have a whole nother different group of people who are trying to get in the coaching profession for different reasons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely, John. And hey, well, John, it's been a pleasure. And I want to say to our audience, if you haven't read John's book, Airball, please go out and get a copy. I mean, it is the information in this is so invaluable, and it's just something, especially I think those of you that are parents of prospective high school athletes that are on that highest level, as he talks about, it'll give you a better perspective of, what to look for and what is actually really going on the college level. John, again, you've been a great guest. We appreciate you. Absolutely. And we'd love to have you again at some point.
Let's do it. You know where to find me.
All right, John. Thank you.
Appreciate what you guys are doing too. I've listened to some of your podcasts. It's good stuff.
Appreciate you.
Keep it doing. Yep. All right, good deal. Thanks, y'all.
Yep. Take care.
All right.
Welcome to our show, Tough Talks Unlimited, co-hosted by Derek Bowles and myself, Michael Garth. In this show, we're going to hear from world-class leaders and innovators, people who are willing to have positive conversations and share their insights on tough talks to get you through tough times. Let's get started.